Are you taking the ACT and you want to know how to finally get all of those big picture reading questions correct in the reading section? Well, look no further than this video. My name is Christina of IB Lunch Test Prep, and for the past 15 years, I've helped high schoolers all around the globe dramatically raise their SAT and ACT test scores so they can ultimately land spots at the colleges of their dreams. So in today's video, we are going to talk about the infamous big picture question that you will see in every single reading section of any ACT that you're going to take, including the new format that is upon us in 2025. We are going to first talk about what these big picture questions look like, how to figure out if it is a big picture question. Then we are going to talk about the many different strategies that you may have heard of that ultimately are pretty sucky and you shouldn't do. Finally, we're going to talk about my favorite strategy to get this question type correct that I help all of my one-on-one ACT students master, and it helps them not only get it right, but save massive amounts of time on the reading section. So let's dive in. First things first, let's take a look at what these questions have looked like on past ACT reading sections. And I want you, as I am telling you all these different questions, think of one thing, and that is, what do they all have in common? So the first one, the central claim of the passage is that the author's attitude towards subject can best be described as the purpose of the passage is to, the passage as a whole can primarily be characterized as, the author uses the word we throughout the passage in order to, which choice best describes what happens in the passage, which choice best describes the developmental pattern of the passage. Okay, so do you have a guess about what the shared theme is here? Well, it's this. Each of these big picture questions asks about the passage as a whole. So there's no specific line number that you can reference within the passage to help you. So instead, each of these questions calls upon your global understanding of what the passage is about, like what the main idea is, what the author thinks about that, what the overall structure is, what the principal rhetorical devices employed by the author might be, right? So I literally just use the word main general principle quite a bit. And so this should help you realize that what you have to do is zoom out and look at the bird's eye view of this passage as a whole. So now that we understand what big picture questions are, let's now talk about various strategies that I have heard that were taught to me back when I used to work at other tutoring companies and that really don't work well for the ACT, and I will explain why. So here is one of the strategies that you might have been taught or might have heard about, and it is create a title for the passage. Love it, right? So this strategy is to craft a headline for the passage as if you were placing it on the front page of a newspaper. Well, back when people actually read newspapers and stuff. What is the drawback of this? Okay, so this might serve as an excellent drill for your study or your test prep when you want to hone your main idea skills for 30 minutes or more, right? This hack though is not time effective when you're actually taking the test itself. Remember that on the ACT, even with its new format, which gives you more time per passage, you get 10 minutes per passage as a regular time test taker, and you only have 9 questions per passage instead of 10. So you get more time per question now. Yay! But that's still not a lot of time. So you just don't have enough time to comb through the passage carefully and write a headline for it. So that was strategy number 1 that I would not do, is create a headline. Strategy 2 that I have heard an awful lot is pick the broadest or the vaguest answer choice. Now, the premise here is that a general question should have a general answer. So theoretically, all you really need to do is eliminate the answer choices that are too detailed, and seamlessly you will arrive at the most vague or general answer that will magically be the answer to the big picture question. Except that's only partially true. So sure, the main idea questions should ideally have an answer choice attached to them that is, big enough, broad enough to contain the details of the body paragraphs themselves. But the test writers are going to be too crafty to only have one of those for most of these big picture questions. So you could still be left with two or more choices. And if you use this method, and you might not arrive at the right answer. So I don't love this strategy, even though some people swear by it. Okay, another strategy that a lot of test prep companies will push is what's the topic or the subject that the passage is talking about? Just pick the answer choice that includes that topic. Okay, like we're getting warmer now. However, this is one of those other, like, for me, this is still another one of those like tips and tricks style techniques that bypasses like actually understanding what the passage is about. So for me, it's next, let's move on. The fourth technique that I've seen and not seen good results from is for a student to spend hour upon hour with their tutor dissecting what the topic is versus the central claim of the passage versus the main idea versus the general structure versus the purpose versus the author's attitude versus the author's tone. Okay, like if you are studying for like AP Lit or AP Composition, awesome. Go right ahead. You should know how to do all of these things, right? But as much as these are great skills to have, they are really going to waste your time to get these questions right on the ACT's reading section. Like, you just don't have a whole year to analyze literature greats just so you can ace the like what, 4 to maybe 6 questions, big picture questions on the ACT's reading section. So it's just not a time efficient approach to studying for standardized tests. So I would say next. Okay, the fifth one that I have heard a lot is to read the introductory and concluding paragraphs. So I have a note here. If you are in doubt, right? These are, in fact, the exact places that I would look to try and figure out what the main idea or the big picture answer is, right? So hooray, this is like the closest one of these 5 techniques so far. But we can do a little bit better than like emergency measures, can't we? So these might be like the tactics that you're already familiar with. These are the ones that you probably have seen in your test prep books, on websites, in your ACT study guides. And it might be the general approaches that many ACT tutors and test prep professionals might push. But here's the deal. I want you to metaphorically take my hand because I'm going to walk you now through an approach that you have not seen before, but one that is going to transport you to the right answer in way less time. Are you ready? Hey, if you are new to my universe, my name is Christina of Ivy Lounge Test Prep. My jam is helping high schoolers get into college by first helping them dramatically raise their SAT and ACT test scores, and then by helping them write very compelling and authentic to them college application essays. So now I have a question for you, and that is, do you have trouble with the big picture question on the ACT reading passages or any reading passage on any type of test? If so, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. While you're at it, hit those like and subscribe buttons. And then that way, every week when I drop my latest and tips, tricks, and updates for the SAT, the ACT, and college applications, you will be the very first to know. So this is the fastest way to answer big picture questions. So my method is counterintuitive in some ways, but I promise you this, for about 90% of my students, it does work wonders and saves them hours upon hours of prep time and also lots of crucial minutes and seconds on the actual ACT's reading section. But first, I have a question for you. Think back to the last ACT that you took, practice test, real test, whatever. In the reading section, where did those big picture questions happen? So like in the new format, there's only 9 questions per passage. It used to be 10 questions per passage. That's fine. Where did they occur in that lineup of 9 or 10 questions? Any ideas? So if you said, well, Christina, they usually are the first questions to be asked, you, my friend, are right. So when the ACT includes big picture questions for a reading passage, it'll usually be the first question or two that you're going to see in your list of 10, now 9 questions per passage. And if you were like, pretty much all of my students that come to me before we start working together, you'll attempt to answer these questions first as well. So enter my intervention, okay? So ask yourself this. Is it efficient to try and answer a question concerning the entire passage when you've only just read the passage for the first and hopefully the only time, and might still be struggling to like really understand and digest what it is that you in fact just read? No, no, right? Like, think about this. No, of course it's not very efficient at all. Because in order to answer a big picture question, you'll probably need to return to the passage. You'll end up rereading some paragraphs, if not trying to reread the whole thing, and you will be wasting valuable time. And still, you risk getting the answer wrong. Oh, right. And then you have like another 7 or 8 questions to go for the passage. So, not ideal answering it first. So, here's your secret advantage over all the other students who are taking the test. And that is, you're not going to waste another moment pouring back over the passage after you did your initial read, right? Instead, you're going to answer the big picture question or the big picture questions last. So here's what this actually looks like in action, okay? The first thing, you're going to read your reading passage however it is that you read a reading passage. And if you are familiar with my online courses and ebooks that I have for the ACT, I actually have a course called The Ultimate Guide to the ACT's Reading Section. And in it, I actually have 4 main reading strategies that basically work. Like one of them will work for you for the ACT's reading, okay? So whichever one of these is the one that works for you, or however it is that you read a reading passage on the ACT, you are going to read the passage like that, okay? So that is the first thing, is you read the passage however you are used to reading the reading passages on the ACT. Now, number 2, you are going to answer the questions in whichever way that you have already been working on answering questions. And you're like, what do you mean, whichever? I'll explain. So like when I work with my private students, like one-on-one, I actually come up with like a bespoke system for like what order they should answer certain question types in for them so that they understand it the best and they are the most time efficient possible. So for our purposes here though, right? So what's important is that you do not answer any big picture questions until you've completed all of the other question types that you have for that reading passage. And then finally, you're going to answer all the big picture questions last, even if they were asked first. So now here is why it works. So instead of spending additional time processing what the passage is about in order for you to answer this big picture question type separately, you're going to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So you're processing and digesting what the passage is about by working through the other 7 or 8 more detailed, specific questions of the passage. So you're literally getting your points, like question by question. And as you do that, you are learning what this passage is about. All the details are coming together, kind of like osmosis beneath the surface. Okay? So now after you've worked through all of those detailed questions, of which, there's 7 or 8 of them, right? Then you will have a much more in-depth knowledge about what the passage is about as a whole. So now, when you go back to answer those big picture questions or big picture question for that passage, you probably won't need to refer back to the passage at all because you've kind of done the work already. So the answer will likely seem very apparent to you as you read it, right? So here's an added bonus, right? So in addition to not only saving time on the ACT's reading section and not only getting these big picture questions right that you were likely missing before, guess what? You also don't have to waste the 5 to 10 hours of private tutoring sessions trying to rewire your brain for how you interpret what it is that you read in the first place, right? You can save those more nuanced literature conversations for your honors English class when you're having a group discussion on, I don't know, what the theme of freedom is in the Scarlet Letter or something like that. So this is the technique for answering the big picture questions on the ACT reading passage that has worked for all of my private students, and I know will work for you too. Now, if you need more help, there are two ways that you can get that. One is you can look at my online ebooks and courses. I have one for every section of the ACT. I'll drop the link below. But the other is that maybe you want to work with me one-on-one. So I will also include that. You can find me at ivyloungetestprep.com, and we can explore working together one-on-one in a tutoring package or even just ad hoc tutoring sessions so we can raise your score.